The autumn of 1891 painted the Missouri hills with shades of red and gold when Abigail Moore stepped down from the dusty stagecoach. At 24, with brown hair tied in an austere bun and determined green eyes, she adjusted her simple hat and observed the small town of Redemption Creek for the first time. The young teacher had accepted the position after the death of her father, a progressive pastor from Boston who had raised her with ideals of justice and compassion uncommon for the time. The village seemed frozen in time. A main dirt road, an imposing Baptist church in the center, a few basic necessity stores, and modest houses scattered around. In the distant hills, Abigail spotted a larger construction, partially hidden among the trees. The Redemption Camp, as indicated by the faded sign at the town entrance. "Miss Moore, welcome to Redemption Creek," said Reverend Thaddeus Palmer, a tall, thin man with a graying beard and eyes that never seemed to fully smile. "I hope you had a good journey. Let's take you to the school and your accommodation." As they walked, Abigail noticed how people averted their gaze when the Reverend passed. It wasn't respect. It was fear. The small school was located behind the church, a single room with worn desks and a cracked blackboard. "You'll start tomorrow with 15 children," Palmer explained, "mostly orphans and children of rural workers. Teach them the basics, reading, writing, arithmetic, and of course the scriptures. Nothing more is necessary." That night, settled in the small room at the back of the school, Abigail was organizing her few belongings when she heard soft knocks on the door. An elderly woman, bent by time, entered timidly. "I'm Martha Wilkins, miss. I take care of cleaning the church and school." Her eyes nervously scanned the room before whispering, "Be careful with your questions in this town. Some things are better left unknown." Before Abigail could question, Martha placed a small package on the table. "Homemade cookies for your first night, and some advice. Don't go out after dark, especially on new moon nights." When the door closed, Abigail unwrapped the cookies and found, hidden among them, a yellowed piece of paper. On it, a single sentence written in shaky handwriting. "The children didn't leave, they were taken." That night, as darkness enveloped Redemption Creek, Abigail was awakened by distant chanting coming from the hills. Male voices intoning religious hymns, but there was something wrong with the melody, dissonant notes that caused shivers. From her room window, she glimpsed lights moving among the trees toward the camp, figures in white, like ghosts, climbing the trail in silent procession. Abigail's first week of classes revealed how neglected these children had been. Many barely knew how to hold a pencil, and all demonstrated a reverential fear of the Bible that seemed to surpass simple religious devotion. They were silent children, with gazes that carried secrets too heavy for their ages. Among them was Samuel, a 10-year-old boy with dark, vigilant eyes. Unlike the other children, he observed Abigail with curiosity, not fear. After the third class, when the others had already left, he remained, pretending to organize his few belongings. "Miss Moore," he finally said, his voice almost inaudible, "you're not like the other teachers." "And how were the other teachers, Samuel?" Abigail asked gently. "They taught that asking questions was a sin." His eyes briefly met hers. "My sister asked too many questions. That's why they took her to the camp. She never came back." Before Abigail could respond, the classroom door abruptly opened. Sheriff Caleb Donovan, a burly man with a shiny badge and cold eyes, entered. "Samuel, your uncle is waiting. Go home now." The boy lowered his head and quickly left, without looking back. The sheriff turned to Abigail. "Miss Moore, in Redemption Creek, we value basic education, but we also respect certain boundaries. Children should not be encouraged to question what they don't understand." "I believe questioning is fundamental to learning, Sheriff Donovan," replied Abigail, maintaining her composure. "Perhaps in Boston. Here, obedience comes first." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Reverend Palmer mentioned that you've been asking questions about the camp." Just out of professional curiosity, many of the children mentioned siblings or cousins who were there. The Redemption Camp is a private institution for young people who need special discipline. It's not a subject for a primary school teacher. He walked to the door, stopping before leaving. This town has prospered for decades under Reverend Palmer's leadership and the founding families. It would be a shame if someone disturbed that harmony. That afternoon, Abigail decided to visit the small municipal library located in a corner of the town hall. The librarian, a middle-aged woman named Eleanor Finch, seemed to be the only person genuinely happy to see her. "A teacher who seeks books. How refreshing," commented Eleanor, guiding her between the dusty shelves. "What are you looking for exactly?" "Anything about the history of Redemption Creek, particularly about the Redemption Camp." Eleanor's smile faltered. "We don't have much about that. Most of the official records are in the church or with the founding families." After some insistence, Eleanor brought a single leather-bound volume, a collection of bound local newspapers covering the years 1865 to 1875. "It's all I can offer." "And Miss Moore?" Eleanor hesitated, lowering her voice. "If you find what you're looking for, don't say I was the one who helped." That night, by the light of an oil lamp, Abigail carefully leafed through the yellowed pages. The camp's foundation in 1871 received only a small note, describing it as a Christian refuge for wayward youth under the direction of the esteemed Reverend Palmer and with the generous sponsorship of the Donovan, Blackwood, and Harrison families. What caught her attention, however, were the missing pages, carefully cut out at regular intervals over the years. And even more intriguing, the obituaries. In 20 years of records, there wasn't a single mention of deaths of children or young people at the camp, as if no one had ever died there, or as if no one wanted to record those deaths. When Abigail finally fell asleep, she dreamed of children dressed in white, walking in single file into a dark cave in the hills, while men in white robes sang distorted hymns under the moonlight. Rain was falling mercilessly when Abigail decided to visit Martha Wilkins in her small cabin on the town's outskirts. The elderly woman seemed simultaneously relieved and terrified to see her at the door. "You shouldn't be here, miss," whispered Martha, nervously looking at the muddy road. They watch. They always watch. Inside the modest cabin, Martha served tea in cracked cups. Her hands visibly trembled. "The note you gave me," Abigail began, "about the children who were taken. What do you know about this?" Martha closed her eyes for a moment as if gathering courage. "I've worked at the church for 50 years. I've seen 3 generations grow up in Redemption Creek, and I've seen many children disappear." She rose with difficulty and removed a loose floorboard, revealing a small wooden box. "My late husband was the town's gravedigger. He kept records of all burials. He was meticulous that way." Martha opened the box, revealing a leather-bound notebook. "This is the unofficial record, what Reverend Palmer never allowed to be publicly documented." Abigail leafed through the pages with growing horror. Names, dates, ages. Children between 7 and 16 years old, all supposedly sent to the camp for spiritual correction. Next to each name, a single word: purified. "What does this mean?" asked Abigail, her voice almost failing. "Nobody knows for certain, or perhaps nobody wants to know." Martha took a sip of tea. "It started after the Civil War. Redemption Creek was going bankrupt. The mines had dried up. The harvests failed. That's when Reverend Palmer arrived with his vision. He convinced the founding families to invest in the camp. He promised prosperity. And prosperity came," continued Martha. "The mines inexplicably began producing again. The harvests became abundant. But there was a price. Every new moon, children were selected. Always orphans, children of widows, or families too poor to question. And nobody did anything." Abigail could barely contain her indignation. "Some tried." Martha pointed to a specific page in the notebook. The former teacher, Mr. Bennett, he started asking questions in 1885. He was found hanged in his classroom a week later. The sheriff called it suicide. When Abigail left Martha's cabin, the rain had diminished to a fine drizzle. She hid the notebook inside her coat, feeling its weight as a terrible responsibility. On the way back, she passed by the church and noticed a faint light in Reverend Palmer's office. Moved by an impulse, she approached the window. The Reverend was bent over ancient documents while conversing with Sheriff Donovan and a third man whom Abigail recognized as Jeremiah Blackwood, the owner of the region's largest mine. "The next ceremony will be in 3 days," Palmer was saying. "On the new moon. We need 3 this time." "People are talking," replied Donovan. "This new teacher is asking questions." "Then perhaps she should be invited to participate in our ceremony," suggested Blackwood with a cruel smile. "After all, curiosity is a sin that needs to be purified." Abigail recoiled in horror, but her movement caused a branch to break under her feet. The 3 men looked toward the window. Without thinking twice, she ran through the night, her heart pounding in her chest, until she reached the relative safety of her room. That night, while examining Martha's notebook by candlelight, Abigail noticed a disturbing pattern. All purifications occurred on new moon nights, and the next new moon would be in 3 days. The next morning, Abigail noticed 3 absences in her classroom, including Samuel. When she asked the other children, they lowered their eyes and remained silent. Only at the end of the day did a girl named Emma timidly approach. "They were chosen, Miss Moore," she whispered. "They come at night, wearing white, and say that God commanded it." Abigail's stomach contracted. "Who comes, Emma?" "The purification men. They take the children to the camp before the new moon. For preparation, that's what they say." Determined to find more evidence, Abigail decided to visit the municipal registry during her lunch break. The clerk, an elderly man named Mr. Jenkins, proved surprisingly cooperative when she mentioned researching for an educational project about local history. "The property records are all here," he explained, indicating several shelves of bound books. "But we don't have much time. The sheriff usually lunches here around 2. Abigail focused on the 1871 records, the year of the camp's foundation. What she discovered left her astonished. The property where the camp was built had originally belonged to a local indigenous tribe, then was taken by the government and sold for a pittance to the 3 founding families, Donovan, Blackwood, and Harrison. Even more intriguing was an attached document, a contract between the 3 families and Reverend Palmer, establishing the Society of the New Dawn. The contract vaguely mentioned purification rituals and sacrifices necessary for continued prosperity, but without specific details. "This is strange," muttered Mr. Jenkins, adjusting his glasses while examining the document. "I've never seen this contract before, and I've worked here for 30 years. Is there any mention of what happened on that land before the camp?" asked Abigail. Jenkins hesitated. "Well, there were stories. The natives considered that place sacred, but also dangerous. They said the cave in the hills was a door to another place, a dark place." The sound of the registry door opening interrupted the conversation. Sheriff Donovan entered, his gaze hardening upon seeing Abigail. "Miss Moore, what a surprise to find you here." "Just researching local history for my classes," she responded calmly, closing the record book. "Local history." The sheriff smiled without humor. "Perhaps you should focus on the present. 3 of your students were transferred to the camp last night. Troubled children need special discipline." "Samuel wasn't troubled," contested Abigail. "He was one of my best students." "He asked too many questions, like you." Donovan approached. "You know, Reverend Palmer mentioned that we might need a new teacher, someone who better understands the values of our community." That night, Abigail couldn't sleep. She knew she needed to act quickly if she wanted to save Samuel and the other children. She decided she needed to see the camp with her own eyes. The following dawn, dressed in dark clothes and carrying a small lantern, Abigail followed the trail that wound through the hills. The crescent moon provided just enough light to avoid stumbling. After almost an hour of walking, she spotted the outlines of the redemption camp. A complex surrounded by a high wooden palisade. Circling the perimeter, she found a point where she could climb and observe the interior. The camp consisted of several rustic buildings arranged in a circle around a central plaza. In the center of the plaza was what appeared to be a stone altar, and beyond the buildings, the dark entrance of a cave. Guards patrolled the perimeter carrying lanterns and, Abigail narrowed her eyes to be sure, weapons. They were carrying rifles. As she watched, the door of one of the buildings opened. Two figures in white robes led a group of children toward the cave. Among them, Abigail recognized Samuel, walking as if in a trance. Suddenly, a hand covered her mouth from behind. Abigail tried to scream, struggling against her captor. "Quiet, or they'll hear us," whispered a female voice in her ear. When the hand moved away, Abigail turned to face Eleanor Finch, the librarian. "What are you doing here?" asked Abigail, her heart still racing. "The same as you, I imagine. Trying to prevent another purification." Eleanor signaled for her to follow away from the palisade. "My younger sister was brought here in 1880. I never saw her again." Hidden among the trees, Eleanor explained, "the ritual happens in the cave. They prepare the children for 3 days, fasting, prayers, something they put in the water that makes them docile. On the new moon night, they take them to the depths of the cave. And what happens there?" Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. "No one who returned can, or wants to, explain, but I know it involves blood, and I know that not all children come back." "We need help," said Abigail. "The sheriff is obviously involved. Is there anyone in town we can trust?" "Few. Most know something wrong happens here, but fear and prosperity keep them silent." Eleanor hesitated. "There's a journalist in Jefferson City who has been investigating disappearances throughout the region. His name is Michael Clark. I've sent him anonymous letters for years, but never had the courage to identify myself. We need to contact him immediately," decided Abigail. The new moon is tomorrow night. The plan was risky. Eleanor would send an urgent telegram to Michael Clark, while Abigail would return to town to avoid raising suspicions. They would meet again at night to try to discover more about the ritual and, if possible, rescue the children. Upon returning to her classroom that morning, Abigail found Reverend Palmer waiting for her. Beside him was a pale young woman with empty eyes. "Miss Moore, this is Miss Grace Wilson. She will be your assistant starting today." Abigail immediately understood. She was being watched. "I didn't request an assistant, Reverend. The school board thought it prudent considering your unconventional teaching methods." Palmer's smile was icy. "Miss Wilson grew up in the camp. She perfectly understands our values." Throughout the day, Grace observed Abigail's every move, rarely speaking, her eyes following her like a vigilant predator. The children seemed terrified by her presence, answering questions in whispers and avoiding any eye contact. At the end of class, when the last student left, Grace finally spoke. "They know you were at the camp last night." Abigail froze. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't lie." Grace's voice was monotonous, almost mechanical. "I was 7 when I was taken to the cave. I was one of the few who returned." "Do you know why?" When Abigail didn't respond, Grace continued, "Because I accepted the pact, because I understood that sacrifice is necessary." "What sacrifice, Grace? What happens in that cave?" For an instant, something resembling emotion flickered in Grace's empty eyes. "The darkness needs to be fed so that the light can continue to shine upon Redemption Creek." Before Abigail could question further, the door opened and Sheriff Donovan entered, accompanied by 2 armed men. "Miss Moore, you're invited to attend a special school board meeting tonight." At the camp, Abigail realized it wasn't an invitation, but a sentence. And if I refuse, then I'll have to arrest you for trespassing on private property and interfering in protected religious matters. The sheriff's smile was predatory. Either way, you'll come with us. As she was escorted out of the school, Abigail saw Eleanor watching from a distance, horror in her eyes. She was her only hope now, that Eleanor would manage to contact Michael Clark in time. The sun was beginning to set when they arrived at the camp. This time, Abigail was led through the main gate, where Reverend Palmer waited, dressed in a white tunic adorned with strange red symbols. "Welcome to the true redemption camp, Miss Moore," he said. "Few outsiders have the privilege of witnessing our sacred work." Abigail was taken to a small building that served as a cell. Through the only barred window, she could see the movement in the camp increasing as night fell. Men and women in white robes lit torches and prepared what appeared to be an altar in the center of the plaza. Hours later, the cell door opened. Grace entered, carrying a simple white dress. "Put this on," she ordered. "It's time for your purification." "What are you going to do to me?" asked Abigail, refusing to take the dress. For a moment, Grace's mask seemed to crack. "They haven't decided yet. The Reverend thinks you could be useful, a new guardian to replace Mrs. Harrison, who is aging. But the sheriff..." She hesitated. "The sheriff thinks you would be more valuable as a sacrifice." Sacrifice? The word made Abigail's blood freeze. "You kill the children?" "Not all of them." Grace spoke as if discussing the weather. "Some are chosen to feed what lives in the cave. Others are spared if they accept the pact and drink from the dark water." "And what is this dark water?" "Blood. Mixed with something from the cave, something ancient." Grace's eyes lost focus for a moment. "It transforms you inside. You see things differently afterward. You understand the purpose." Abigail felt nauseous. "And the children who don't drink? They feed what is hungry, so that the hunger doesn't turn toward the town." Grace extended the dress again. "Put this on now. They're waiting." When Abigail was led outside, the new moon had risen, a black void in the starry sky. The central plaza was illuminated by dozens of torches, creating dancing shadows on the faces of those present, practically all the adults of Redemption Creek, dressed in white, forming a circle around the stone altar. On the altar, 3 kneeling children, including Samuel. Their eyes were glazed as if they were drugged. Beside them, a dark stone chalice containing a red-black liquid. Reverend Palmer raised his hands, and the chanting began, the same that Abigail had heard on her first night in town. Now, up close, she could distinguish the words, a distorted mixture of Latin and something older, darker. "First, the choice," announced Palmer. "Who will drink from the water of life and serve the pact? Who will feed the hunger so that we may prosper?" He approached Samuel, lifting his chin. "This boy asks too many questions. His mind is too strong to be molded. He will feed the hunger." The other 2 children were evaluated in the same way, one designated to drink, the other to feed the hunger. Then Palmer turned to Abigail. "And what about our meddlesome visitor? What will be her fate?" Sheriff Donovan stepped forward. "She is dangerous. She knows too much. She must feed the hunger." Jeremiah Blackwood disagreed. "She is educated, useful. She can teach the chosen children, like Grace." Palmer studied Abigail for a long moment. "Let's have her see first. Let her understand the purpose of our work. Then we'll decide." Abigail was forced to stand beside the altar as the ritual continued. Palmer raised the chalice and offered it to the child chosen to drink. The boy, no more than 8 years old, obediently drank. Immediately his body convulsed and he fell to the ground, violently trembling as a dark liquid ran from his eyes like black tears. "The transformation has begun," announced Palmer. "Now, to feed the hunger." Samuel and the other child were lifted and taken toward the cave. Abigail was forced to follow the procession, which advanced chanting through the dark passage, illuminated only by torches. The cave descended deeply into the earth, the air becoming colder and damper with each step. Finally, they reached a large chamber where stalactites hung from the ceiling like monstrous teeth. In the center of the chamber was a natural well, so dark it seemed to absorb the light from the torches. "Behold the devourer," proclaimed Palmer, "the one who grants prosperity in exchange for sacrifice." Abigail looked into the well and felt her heart almost stop. Something moved in the depths, something vast and ancient. She couldn't clearly see its form, only an undulating mass of darkness denser than the darkness around it. "For almost 30 years we have fed its hunger," continued Palmer, "and in return, our mines produce silver, our harvests are abundant, our lives are long." He made a gesture, and the men holding Samuel dragged him to the edge of the well. The boy, now fully conscious, began to scream and struggle. "No! Please! I don't want to go there!" Abigail couldn't contain herself. "Stop! He's just a child!" Palmer turned to her, his eyes shining with insane fervor. "All great pacts require blood, Miss Moore. The ancients understood this. We have merely rediscovered the lost knowledge." At that moment, a shot echoed through the cave, followed by screams at the entrance. The congregation turned in confusion. Armed men were invading the cave, led by a tall man with a federal marshal's badge. "Federal police! Everyone freeze!" It was Michael Clark. Not just a journalist, but an undercover federal agent. Beside him was Eleanor, guiding the agents. Chaos erupted. Some congregation members tried to flee, others attacked the agents. In the tumult, Abigail ran to Samuel, pulling him away from the well. "Run to the entrance," she shouted, pushing him toward the passage. But as the fight intensified, something began to emerge from the well, tentacles of pure darkness, reaching for those nearby. One of Palmer's men was grabbed and dragged into the depths, his screams abruptly silenced. Palmer, seeing his ritual interrupted, grabbed the chalice and lunged at Abigail, trying to force her to drink. In the struggle, the chalice spilled, its contents splashing onto the stone floor. Where the liquid touched, the rock seemed to dissolve, revealing something beneath, ancient symbols carved into the very foundation of the cave. "You've ruined everything," screamed Palmer. "The hunger will turn on us all now." The ground began to shake. Stalactites fell from the ceiling. The darkness in the well seemed to expand, reaching further into the chamber. Michael Clark grabbed Abigail's arm. "We need to get out of here now. The whole place is collapsing." They ran toward the exit, helping the children along the way. Behind them, screams echoed as the darkness claimed those who couldn't escape in time. Outside, dawn was breaking. Federal agents rounded up the surviving cult members, including Sheriff Donovan and Jeremiah Blackwood. The children were being attended to by doctors who had accompanied the raid. "How did you find us?" Abigail asked Clark. "Eleanor's telegrams over the years created a pattern," he explained. "When her urgent message came yesterday, we were already preparing to investigate. We just accelerated our plans. And the children? The ones who drank?" Clark's expression darkened. "We'll do what we can for them, but the effects of whatever they were given, we don't know if it's reversible." As they spoke, a tremendous rumbling came from the hillside. The cave entrance collapsed in on itself, sending a cloud of dust into the morning air. Whatever had dwelled in those depths was now sealed away, or perhaps buried forever. 1 month later, Abigail sat in the office of the Jefferson City Herald, reading Michael Clark's expose on the front page, "Cult of Death, 97 Children Sacrificed in Decades-Long Horror." The article detailed the investigation's findings, records of children sent to the camp over 20 years, testimonies from surviving cult members, and the grisly discovery of human remains in a hidden chamber of the cave before its collapse. "It's causing quite a stir," said Clark, sitting across from her. "The governor has ordered investigations into similar institutions across the state. 3 more camps have already been shut down." "And Redemption Creek?" asked Abigail. The town is being disbanded. Most residents claim they knew nothing about what happened in the cave, but he shrugged. At minimum, they chose not to see. Abigail thought of Martha Wilkins, who had died peacefully in her sleep the night after the raid. As if finally released from a long vigil, she thought of Grace, now in a sanitarium, still speaking of the hunger in her lucid moments, and she thought of Samuel and the other children rescued from the camp. Some were being placed with foster families, others sent to legitimate orphanages. The road to recovery would be long, but at least they had a chance now. "What about the thing in the well?" she asked quietly. "Was it real? Or just some elaborate trick to control people through fear?" Clark was silent for a moment. The geologists who examined the cave before the collapse found something unusual. The well wasn't natural. It had been dug, possibly centuries ago, by the indigenous people who once lived there, and it went much deeper than it should have, given the local geology. So there was something down there. "I don't know, Abigail. What I do know is that human evil doesn't need supernatural help. The real monster was Palmer and his cult, using fear, superstition, and greed to control an entire town and sacrifice innocent children." And there, as Abigail prepared to leave, Clark handed her an envelope. "The Federal Education Department was impressed by your courage. They're offering you a position helping to establish proper schools in underserved rural areas." Abigail took the envelope, thinking of all the other children out there, vulnerable to those who would exploit them. "I'll accept, on one condition, that we ensure every school has complete records of its students. No child should ever disappear without someone looking twice." As she stepped out into the sunlight, Abigail felt both the weight of what she had witnessed and the responsibility of what lay ahead. The darkness in Redemption Creek had been buried, but not destroyed. It would take vigilance and the courage to ask questions to ensure it never emerged again. In her pocket was a small notebook, Martha's record of the lost children, 97 names that would no longer be forgotten. 97 reasons to ensure that such horror would never happen again. And in the hills of Missouri, where the redemption camp once stood, the land lay empty now, slowly being reclaimed by nature. But on moonless nights, locals claimed they could still hear faint chanting on the wind, a reminder that some hungers are never truly satisfied, only temporarily appeased.